Hi, I'm Linda Baker, and I am here at the Coastal Discovery Museum in Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina today, although my journey started in Michigan, so many of you may know me from Michigan. It's a gorgeous day here. I just love the way the moss is hanging from the trees and the sunshine is streaming through the windows. And I have the wonderful task of selecting the award winners for the South Carolina Watermedia exhibit. The work is outstanding, and choosing the awards is going to be a gruesome task because I will want to give each of them an award. I think the work is very strong. Having said this, I will have to select between them, and the following information will tell you how I selected and why I selected the pieces that I did. I'm honored to be here. I thank you very much for having me as your juror. I want to congratulate all the artists that were accepted. A job very well done. Thank you. I knew the second I saw this painting that I was in love with it. I'm particularly drawn to the abstraction of the background, the handling of the chair, which is not overly handled, but the blue jeans themselves. I love all the detail involved. I love that the leather placket on the blue jeans is the same color as the chair, offering us a little bit more interest and intrigue. I love that all the little fuzzy strings and lines that hang off of the blue jeans are captured. I love the way the shadow of the blue jeans, the interior shadow, the way it picks up the warmth from the chair, and then the way it's reflected in the shadows against the chair. This is an example of almost photorealism, not quite, but I think realistic painting at its best. It's an absolutely ordinary subject that we see every day, that we walk past every day, and this artist has taken their vision and turned it into a painting for us to enjoy. The detail juxtapositioned against the abstraction is just very intriguing, and you could just look at this painting for a very long time. I know that I, as a juror, spent much time looking at it and enjoying it before I selected it. This artist has done a really fine job. Congratulations to the artist. This is a beautiful painting. There's nothing that I can say that would be any kind of a criticism of this painting at all. I love the handling of the scarf, which goes into the background. I love the lost and found edges between her hair and the background. I love the handling of the hat, which matches her outfit and brings our eye from the top down to the bottom. I think the handling of the hand is exceptionally well done. I like the contemplative capturing of the expression. I like it that the painting is not improved too much the look of her skin. We get the feeling that we know this person, that this person is real. I love the expression on her face. I was just absolutely drawn to this painting the second I saw it. I felt it could not be ignored from a juror's point of view. This artist does something unusual. It is hard to see a really well done abstract. Abstract by definition leaves us not too much in way of knowing where to put what shapes, and so the artist just has to come up with all of this on their own. This artist does an extremely competent job in placing the strong colors and the light colors. I love the use of red. I love the strong triangle within the vertical format of the painting. I like the calligraphic lines that are not overdone, but they lead us directly to where the artist wants the viewer to go. I like the little spatterings of shapes that show a sense of spontaneity along with all of the well-placed drama and strength of this painting. It's a very strong piece. At first glance, we're drawn to the strength of the raven that is in the painting and the details that are on the trunk. But upon closer observation, we realize that we're sort of looking from the inside of the room to the outside of the room, but that the outside is coming in, and so it has a very conceptual feel. We have this feel that the bed is turning into the lawn and the lawn is turning into the bed, and that we get the feeling that nothing is what it seems. And I think this gives us a little bit of a disturbing feeling as well as a comforting feeling. It's like it's all there and yet nothing is what it seems that it should be. It's very well painted. The use of color is very strong. It's a very strong piece, and I'm very drawn to the conceptual qualities that are included here by the artist. I really enjoy the square format of this painting. It is standard cruciform handled within a square format, but what I'm most drawn to is the use of the warm and the cools. I love the warm cruciform with the cools dancing around it. back to the warms, and then everything is sort of encompassed by the neutrals. I think the neutrals in this painting make the warms and cools even more dynamic than they would be without the neutrals. Anytime we surround color with neutrals, we get a bigger splash of color, and so I'm liking that part. I like the way the blues are just sort of dancing around. I like the calligraphic marks, and I like the scale of this. I like the handling of it. Even though it's an abstract and we don't really know what it is, we still can see a sense of movement and a sense of drama and a sense of intrigue that makes us want to go in and take a closer look. I really like the way this figure is moving. I like the way the artist has captured the figure in movement in the middle of a step. It gives us the feeling that she's going somewhere. I like the simple handling of this painting. None of it is over fussy, nothing is overdone. It all has a feeling of much freshness and much spontaneity. I like it that the hair and the hat are the same color. I like it that it's a high horizon and that the artist hasn't gotten overly fussy with all of the detail around the figure. The figure is the main event, and the big bouquet of flowers she's carrying, we can almost feel them. We can feel how full and fresh they are. I like the cool handling of the shadow against the warm handling of the figure, and I like it that it repeats up in the cool handling of the sky. This painting just has a very fresh, clean, spontaneous feeling that we don't often see in such a large work, so I was very drawn to that. An incredibly well-painted painting. I really like the use of cools and warms. As the day breaks, I like the way the top is very atmospheric, as if a fog or dew is lifting, and the way the sun is streaming in across the bales of hay I find very intriguing. I think this artist was very masterful in the use of lights and darks and warms and cools. I also like the way the artist has given us more information right around the focal point, where the little detail on the door and the details that as you go into the stall, we can see a little bit more detail. So it's like the story is there and the artist is just leading us directly into the path of the story as the viewer. That's something that's difficult for an artist to do. I really like the story, and I really like the way the artist is leading us into that story. Very entertained by the high horizon. The feeling of beach that this artist has captured, I think, is quite stunning. We get the feeling that the wave is going out and that the water is rushing out with it. And so it has a sense of movement and a sense of action, which I think is hard to capture oftentimes in a painting. I really like the positioning of the figures. The little child running out ahead of them gives us a story to be entertained by. But I'm very drawn to the limited palette. This is basically whites, lights, and monochromatic, and yet the value is very strong. The artist has captured just enough darks to make the story told and not too many darks to over-entertain us. We get this feeling of spaciousness around this painting, that you're out there, blustery day, and that there's nobody else in sight, and it has a feeling of a very solitary and very intimate moment. I am very drawn to the high horizon. I am drawn to the use of an ordinary subject that nobody would actually think of as a painting, and yet here it is, and it's very entertaining to us. I like it that the water is not overly handled. That is a lot of simplicity to it. I really enjoy the way the old dock pieces stick up out of the water and work as a vertical against all the horizontal pieces that are in the foreground. I like the handling of rust. I am kind of intrigued by the light source because the shadows are long on the cement parts, indicating a very strong light source, and then we are entertained by the very dark background. I think this artist has taken a little bit of artistic license here and made the painting better for it. I really like the composition. I like the diagonal thrusts, the way the cement pieces are coming down through the painting, and I like the minimal use of color. I think it's a very strong painting of just an ordinary subject that not too many of us would think of. Job well done. I like the square format. I like the use of the square within the square. I really like the juxtaposition of the little girl's face and her hands. Her hands are so well done. I like that this figure has a very contemplative look, that she's not looking at us, so it takes it out of the realm of being a portrait, more into the realm of being a painting of mood or contemplation. I like the use of the sepia background and that there's a minimal of color, but the value content is very, very strong. I like all the details, the way they're handled equally and yet not too fussy. I like it that she's in focus and yet she's not photorealistic. I like the way her hair kind of drifts into the background and gives us a very painterly effect. I love the attitude of this painting. I like the viewpoint. I like it that the artist has selected to paint just the legs and all of the shoes. In a society where shoe fetish is rampant, I think the red shoes right in the middle there just draw us right in. And of course, the dress that that figure is wearing is very stunning and a little bit out of the ordinary. I just am really enjoying the artist's viewpoint. Not to mention that it is so well painted. I like the way the background almost disappears into abstraction, and that is just all about the legs and the shoes. This artist has told us a perfect story that we can all relate to. This painting is just very well done. I am very intrigued by the offset of the figure against the abstract background. The background is handled just enough to be interesting and yet not too much to take away from the face. This face gives us a feeling that this person has survived something. We get the feeling that there's a lot of history, that there's a lot of depth and character in this face and in those eyes. And I think that the artist has given us a really wonderful view into the inner workings of this figure. I just suspect that there's a lot of story behind this and that the artist has allowed us to take a little peek into her insights. This artist is really adept at storytelling. I like the story of this figure. I like the way the hands are in front of the face. The hands are very well handled. I love the expression that's on the face because we get the feeling that this person is homeless and yet he doesn't look desperate. And I like that. I love the use of color, the worms that are dancing all through the background and then picked up on the bricks. And then, of course, with the jacket or whatever it is that's laying across his lap. I'm just very intrigued with how well the face and arms on this particular piece are handled. I think it's very well painted. The composition is very strong, and I think it's a very inviting piece of artwork. I love this painting. I love the square format. I love the significance of the figure right there on the top of that dark, where we've got the darkest dark against the lightest light, and it brings us right to her head. I love the handling of her and her body and the space around her. We don't really know where she stops and the rest of it begins, but what we know is that she is the most important thing in this painting, and that we as the viewer know that. I'm taken with the analogous use of color in the background with the strong, almost iridescence that are in her costume and the space around her as the figure. So I think this is just a very innovative painting. I was very intrigued by this painting. I like the soft, subtle setting of it. She looks very relaxed. She looks like she's taking time out from a busy life to spend some time with a book or with the word, something that's meaningful to her. I like the way the fronds, the shadow of the fronds sort of direct your eye toward her and give us a little bit more intimate view. I particularly like the way the minimal color that's picked up in the book is also used in the tie that goes around her and then dangles down behind her, which gives us a little bit of interest and intrigue and something more to draw us into the very contemplative feeling that we get from this figure. I think it's a very strong, compositionally well done painting. I like the high horizon of this painting. I like the limited palette. It works very well together. I like that the top is quite solid and then we go to sort of this more explained calligraphy and then a little bit more murky again at the bottom. Offers a lot for our mind to think about. I like the shapes that are contained within the center of the painting, and we don't necessarily know what these shapes are, but they indicate to us something sort of like a silhouette or something more mindful that we might be thinking about. And I think we're intrigued by what goes on in those squares, and as a viewer we want to go in and solve the puzzle. So I think this painting offers quite a bit of an intrigue. I really enjoy this painting. I love the high horizon. I love the repetition of the 3 to 4 main colors in there. I love it that they're sort of analogous colors with that shot of orange. I love that her hat and the birds are orange, so it tells us a total story. She's got these little bird cages and her birds are for sale, and the story is just very complete and done in a very simple manner, and I really like the simplicity of this piece. I love this painting. I love the feeling of maybe early morning or the atmospheric feeling around her and her horse. I love the connection between the figure and the horse. And I also love it that she's looking outside away from her horse instead of right in next to her horse. I think it offers a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more abstraction to it. I just think it's a very well handled piece, and I think you can feel the love between her and the animal. I was very drawn to this painting, not just because of the architecture, but the people in front of the building. I very much like the way the artist has positioned the people, the way they're coming at you and they're mulling around and visiting. You wonder what they're talking about. It has a sense of action, has a sense of community to it. I like the well handling of the architecture and that the light pole goes right down the center of it, but it's not distracting at all because it's handled so well with the umbrellas. So I think this is just a very well painted example of a beautiful street scene. I really like the handling of this painting. It's about a single flower, and yet for me it's not about the flower at all. I'm very drawn to the background, the very rich colors in the cactus or the plant that this flower is coming out of. I like the sort of gradation from warm to cool and back again. The flower is handled in a very cool manner against this warm background, and the warm background is taken almost to abstraction, which I found very intriguing. I love this painting. I love the simple way that it's handled. I like the way the background is just a simple blue, sort of an opaque treatment, and yet the veil is very, very see-through, has a feeling of elegance. The way she's positioned right dead center in the middle of the square works beautifully. The fact that the artist didn't make the flowers more important, that it's all about her, and it has a sense of movement to it, the way her veil is handled and the way the background is handled. I think it has a lot of movement and activity in the background that I'm very drawn to. I like the handling of this painting. I like that the flowers are quite precise, and yet they're not fussy, they're not photorealism. We get a little sense of painterliness along with the strong shapes. I like the way the dark comes in against the white flower, and I like the way the transportation of the painting comes down to the lily pads, which bring us back up to the flowers again. I think this is a very strong composition, and I was drawn by the strong contrast that's included in this painting. Red Hot Blues. You can almost hear the music in this painting. I like it very much that the figure and the guitar are handled in the same kind of color and that we have to work a little bit to see the difference between them. I like it that his hat goes into the background and that the entire painting is quite muted and gives us a sense of entertainment, gives us a sense of very soothing, and yet he's playing Red Hot Blues, so I think it's a little bit of a dichotomy, and I was really drawn to this. I love that the background and his pants are the same color, and that all of it is done with very little color, and yet we are very much entertained. What attracted me to this painting is that it is not only very well painted, I was very intrigued by the background. The statement of Sun News behind the poppies, and then the wallpaper of little houses and little patterns behind led us to believe that this is about more than just a little poppy plant. And I was very intrigued by that. I like it when conceptually the artist enters another element into the painting besides just the beauty of the flowers, and I think this one does that very successfully. This painting is of cats, but it's taken almost to the point of abstraction, and I think that's what attracted me to it in the first place. You can hardly tell where the cats begin and everything else ends. I like the juxtaposition of the cats together. I like it that they're almost not well drawn, and yet you totally know they're cats. I was very intrigued by the handling of the background bedding, the stripes and stuff on the bedding, very well handled, but mostly I was just drawn to the abstraction of the kitties and the juxtaposition of the two of them together. I was really drawn to the pies, but it's not the pies that made a difference in this painting. It's the structure that they're sitting on, the way it's all connected. This is a really nice example of repetition with variation. You can almost smell the pies baking. It makes your mouth water just to look at it, but I was really drawn to the composition of this. The pies are right in the center, right in our direct viewpoint, but the structure around it seems to tie all the shapes together, and that was what most intrigued me. Now this painting, you just have to stop and look at it and wonder. You just wonder what these birds are talking about. You want to know whether or not they've checked out Facebook and whether or not each other's pictures were on Facebook or something. They just seem to me like they're having a conversation. I think that is whimsical and fun, and the colors are rich, and I think we just want to join in and be a part of their party. I think this painting is just a little bit of fun. I like the whimsical aspects of it. I like that nothing in it is too precise or particular. And without a doubt, the star of this painting just has an attitude. And I'm really enjoying that part. She's right dead center in the center of the painting because where else would she be with all of that attitude? I like the way the chairs are juxtapositioned in front of her. I like all the party stuff that's going on. And I think this is just a little bit of fun. And so I was drawn to it immediately. I like the abstraction of it. I like the large curvilinear in the upper left-hand quadrant. I like how it's repeated through the calligraphic lines that border the subject. And what particularly struck me with this painting is that diagonal line that's thrust right down through the upper right-hand corner down to the lower left-hand corner. I think that's a very vital part of this particular painting and part of what drew me to this piece. I really enjoy this painting. I like the diagonal thrust, the way the figure is coming down at an angle. I like the way the background is divided half in the middle, which is a little bit of a rule breaker, but somehow it works in this very contemporary piece. Mostly I like the bird on her arm and then the open cage. I think it's a very conceptual painting and I was drawn to it immediately.